Oh, I wish it gave us a countdown, because if it went 3 seconds, I'd say you are 3 seconds away. And The Rock means 3 seconds away. Oh, God.
There might be a way to like make one.
There is. But I don't care, because we're here at the beginning of Look Who's. What do you need a proper intro? This is not Monday Night Raw, despite the fact that I was just quoting The Rock. This is week 3 of Look Who's Chalking. Week 1 didn't go well for me, but week 2 didn't really go well for me. But it's going to continue that way till the buys. It's just like if you've ever played poker. You don't quit if you have a few bad hands. You have to get through the bad period to eventually get to that good period where you're streaking, or that's at least what we tell ourselves. Gary, how was week 2 a little bit better for you?
I'm trying to think of the right analogy. You know, like when you had, like, I think I had a great week on the slate, except that I had no Tua or Tua double stacks. So it's like I knew everything except the one thing that you actually needed.
And I will say, you and I both were way higher on Jeff Wilson than the rest of the field. Had over 100 total yards and got like 3 touchdowns vultured by fluky type of things. But he actually looked the way I knew he would. Better than last year, because he's not coming off the random knee injury and fully trusted. And then they had the audacity to try to give Tyrion Lannister a couple of extra carries, and then he got the high ankle sprain.
Yep.
Thou shall not interfere with 2022 Jeff Wilson's workload. So I'd like to see him look pretty good. Then there was another call that I was relatively at the end of the show. I mentioned I'm smelling something for Amari Cooper. They showed him week 1. He was burning all the corners, and I guess that continued because he had like 9 catches, I think, for over 100 and a touchdown. But I think that's kind of close to where my good calls end.
Yeah, it was definitely a good receiver on bad team produced week, right? Tyler Lockett had a nice little week. Amari Cooper had a nice little week. People were so scared to draft these guys all year, and like forget that even if a bad NFL offense is a bad NFL offense, it's still an NFL offense that, you know, if they have a talented receiver, they can do some work. So waiting for like Brandon Cooks, somebody like that to come out, because the volume's been there for him. He's got 22 targets, but like he's going to have one of these Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett weeks soon.
So coming into week 3 here, I know you do your early week show. So if you can wrap up your full show into 3 sentences, what do you got for me? Are there any specific, anything that stands out for you week 3?
Yeah. In division game, attractive game environments, high over unders. Like I'm trying to figure out which one of those are going to fail. Cause you know, a lot of these division games can be way grittier than we think. And you don't often see where like all 3 of the highest over unders are division matchups that are, you know, have more juice for these teams.
That became a specialty of mine last year, where I could sniff out the theoretical good game, just like theoretical good times. Like when you go out on New Year's Eve expecting it to be a good time, it's never a good time. Hasn't been a good time since 2006. And I'm going to look for the New Year's Eve of games on this slate. So let's do our classic. What over-under are you seeing that really stares at you? What winks at you?
Yeah, well, the other one that is really intriguing with, in addition to those division games, is KC Indy is in Indianapolis. KC's a 5.5 favorite, but it's got almost a 51 over-under. Obviously, the Chiefs coming off long rest. I'm a little worried about the Colts in general, though, right now. Like, I don't know if they can keep up with this team. I get it's in Indy. They stink. And like, I get you probably getting Pittman back this week. Matt Ryan does not look good. The defense has not been as advertised. Like maybe this game can shoot out. I don't know. I'm going back and forth on that one.
I believe that this game smells like a rat. I never needed to play DFS or do anything. If I never played fantasy a day in my life, I would tell you what I'm about to tell you right now. And this game smells like a rat. You see a team that's 2-0. Going against a team that has looked atrocious, tied to the Texans and got shut out by the Jaguars. Everyone and their mother, the unluckiest guy you've ever known in your life, from childhood and then high school and then college, they're all on Kansas City. So do you want to be walking down the aisle with them? Absolutely not. This is a rat game, which makes me think it's going to be reminiscent of that Sunday night game a couple years ago where, was it Marlon Mack ran all over Mahomes in Kansas City, and they were like borderline undefeated, and then they took their first massive loss because the Colts just kept running it down their throat. I'm just saying from a betting perspective, I see the signs of a tidal wave coming, and I'm watching everyone just watch the tsunami. Hey, look, the water is retracting. No big deal. This is interesting. Look at the fish floundering. And I'm just running away as you guys are all just going to get destroyed, like in Deep Impact or The Day After Tomorrow or couldn't think of the third, but there's another tidal wave movie.
Yeah, what was that movie? 2012 with
Yes. The Sum of All Fears with Ben Affleck and I think whatever. But anyway, this game, with that said, you know who I really like in this game because he looked abysmal last game. Secondary is great, though. I think it's going to be like that first game we saw, Juju Smith-Schuster. I do like him in the 5,000s in this game. He looks like the most reliable wide receiver on that team, although we didn't see it last game. But he's that kind of guy. It's tough to ask him to elevate against some of the best secondaries, but beatable secondaries. I think, what you saw Christian Kirk do to them last week, you could be seeing Schuster do something along those lines. Maybe not as big, but along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Taylor is a fascinating thing in this game, right? Like he has been completely game scripted out last game. He's still the most expensive running back on the slate. My guess is he's not going to be very owned. So he makes a really intriguing tournament play if you think, because I'm with you. Indy is 100% the sharp side here from a betting perspective, right? So if that's the case, you'd imagine that's going to be on the back of Jonathan Taylor. Hopefully they won't have to stack the box as much if Pittman and Alec Pierce are back for Indianapolis. Indianapolis is desperate here. KC might be coming in a little lackadaisical, coming off the win and 10 days rest. So something's weird about this game with that 50.5, and I wouldn't be surprised to see someone get there. Maybe it is one of those Chiefs receivers, but I don't think I'm going to be playing it as heavily as I am some of these other 50-point over-unders.
I'm not the biggest Jonathan Taylor guy in the world. I never felt as comfortable paying up for him as I did for someone like McCaffrey. If you're telling me that he's going to be low owned, there's one way I see them winning this game, and that's running that guy into the ground. And I think if they win that coin flip and they take that first drive, and if they successfully run it down their throat, I think you're going to get that motivated Indy offensive line. And remember, week 3, I always say this, whether it's betting, fantasy, it's the random week 3 home openers for a few teams. Those teams that had to start out on the road for 2, and now they finally get to come home playing in the environment that many of them are familiar with the home crowd behind them. This Indy game has all the righties. And if this doesn't go this way, I'm going to have to do something because I've just sold this so much that I need to take some sort of punishment if it doesn't happen, because that's the kind of guy I am. You think I'm going to lead you off a cliff like one of these people on TV? No, I'm going down with you like the O'Doyles. So that's my big call of the week is Indy not only covering Jonathan Taylor having a big game, but so if you're a secondary stack guy, Taylor and Schuster, you can afford all these guys. You can afford them all.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey is back up to what we're used to seeing Kelsey at. He's 7,900, right? We were always used to him being around an 8K player. I'm really, and I mentioned this on the First Look show too, I don't mind paying up for it as a one-off play, but with all these great game environments on the slate, and if you're going to pay up for tight end there, I much prefer it with correlation. So I like it in a game stack, or you want to talk about a very contrarian secondary stack, right? Taylor, Kelsey, that you're paying up through the wazoo. People aren't going to be doing that. So it's a way to get different for sure. Yeah, I mean, actually, I think we should stay on the top of running back here. I know we usually go game by game, but I'm seeing
Larry. Look, if I can just give you a different name, we can do whatever the hell we want. All right, this is our show, Gary. No one can tell us what to do. We are free to do what we want to do. So, what do you want?
What I was going to say is, I'm looking at our ETR projections right now. Early week ownership, we got under 5% on Jonathan Taylor, under 5% on Derrick Henry, and only 8% for Christian McCaffrey right now. Obviously, this is only Thursday morning. These are from Wednesday, pretty much. Like, this can change a lot, but it definitely looks like Taylor and Henry are both going to be under-owned, and McCaffrey at 8.8 is under-owned also at only 8% early week ownership. So, I mean, that's a very interesting spot for all three of these top running backs to be way under 10%.
Absolutely. What I'm going to tell you is I really think Baker Mayfield is the star ruiner, but I want to keep something in the back of your head, just like that protruding tsunami heading back into the ocean before it destroys you. If they bench him and you hear they're going to give a Darnold week 4 start, I swear to you, Put every last chip you've ever had on your life on McCaffrey, because go look how Darnold used them when they were healthy in those first couple of games. I'm talking about 12 catches, absurd amounts. He looked to him every single play along with DJ Moore. So if they announce that, I want you to put every last chip you've ever had. I'm almost secretly, this is the pool player thought. I want to avoid him 2 weeks, let Baker ruin him. And when I hear Darnold announces the starter, every last lineup I had, 100% of my one lineups will have Christian McCaffrey in them. But I guess that's for another day.
I'm more concerned about DJ Moore with Baker than I am Christian McCaffrey. We were all very excited about DJ Moore coming into this season, and I think Baker just can't support these fantasy receivers. At least Christian McCaffrey, still very good this past week. 7 yards a carry on 15 attempts, did get over 100 yards, still had his 5 targets. He's had 5 targets each week. I'd like to see that number go up a little bit, but 20 points. Like he
used to have 10 catches. 5 targets ain't cutting the mustard for me.
No, but I'm going to keep going back to the well while he's under 9K until. I mean, it's not like he's completely busting. He still had 20 points last week. So like
I know.
I'm going to keep going way over the field. Like maybe it just keeps killing me, but I'm going to keep doing it.
Good. Oh, you think I haven't done things like that? I've followed certain players to their grave. You remember how many years you laughed at me for taking Mohamed Sanu?
You and I loved Giants running back number 2, Matt Breida for a very long time. Matt Breida was our guy for years. Yeah. I still think Matt Breida might have a top 15 fantasy season one of these years.
the Niners, they know how to do it to me. Like him, Mostert. I was the biggest Mostert guy you've ever seen last year. He was my men's warehouse pick of the week 1, season-ending knee injury. Yep. Eli Mitchell is my men's warehouse pick of the year. Goes down week 1. I got one left. It's Jeff Wilson. He's my last one.
Let's go. I'll say it's a good run out for him with Garoppolo coming back. Not that I think we've beaten the Niners thing into the ground. I think, but
all right, so fine. Then I guess we can beat into the ground how Derek Carr is the second coming of Phillip Rivers. Guys, I tried telling you year after year. It took me 9 years to finally convince people Phillip Rivers was actually just a big loser. This is what they do. When they have a chance to step on your throat and end the game, which you see many quarterbacks around the league do, they don't. They go run, check down short of the 3rd down yard line, punt, up 3 scores or close to 3 scores, on the fringe of 3 scores against the lifeless Arizona Cardinals, and they looked lifeless for 6 quarters of football. What does he do? He even allows them back into the game. And when he starts getting scared, what does he do? Waller, Renfro, and you get 2 catches for Davante Adams. The fruits of my sniff, fake saying, not real, will come to fruition by the end of this season. Mark my words on Davante Adams.
The fruits of my sniff. I think we have our episode title there. So good job. Yeah, I mean, that game. So Derrick Henry, do you have any faith in him? I don't know if I just think the Tennessee's so bad. So bad.
It's going to be in a game that somebody will keep you around in. Know anyone like that? Oh, yeah, Derek Carr. Now, I understand. My Derrick Henry theory was always this. I bet you I said this last season. Early year Henry, I hate it. Why? Because the defense has been resting all year. This is as healthy as they'll be. The weather's warm. They gang pile the line of scrimmage. Then November, December, he's ripping everything for 12 yards because they don't want to be making those tackles anymore. So it's a combination of 2 things. 1, what you said, and 2, what I said last year. Go look at these previous seasons. He was not ripping down first down runs left and right. It was a lot of this weeks 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, except last year. Last year he had a great early season.
Last year he got hurt.
So now I'm worried about the injury. The AJ Brown loss is huge for them because they have no one else on that offense that scares you at all.
My counter is they've played much of the last couple of years without AJ Brown.
Yeah, I guess that's
true. Do you know most of last year they had no Julio and no AJ Brown, and they felt like people just kind of throw this out the window. They were throwing to carnies all year long, and they somehow managed to get into the playoffs as the 1 seed with no AJ, no Julio. It's wild.
And Henry, and that's why.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. They got the 1st seed with nobody. That should be one of the craziest stories ever that just got dismissed.
Yeah, it's true. But I think it's all finally catching up to them, right? They were fake good, and now they're just bad. And I think Malik Willis we get at some point this season. I think Vrabel will hold on as long as he can, but I think we're getting Malik Willis at some point this
Gary,
season.
they're like me going out. Like I'm still getting a smile or two. It's going to come to a burning halt real quick. And sorry, ladies and gentlemen, once in a while, you've seen me through the years. Sometimes I'll just stick to fantasy. I guess I'm in one of those moods today. So I guess you're getting a little less fantasy, a little more whatever this is that I'm bringing to the table.
That's all to be said. This game's in Tennessee. They're desperate. The Raiders, I don't think, are a very good defense either. And no one's going to play Derrick Henry. So if you want to go for it in tournaments, I don't think it's a terrible call.
Yeah. I mean, if you have the Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, and then try to save money everywhere else, I mean, I don't know. Imagine this is the clip that goes viral next week on all of online. He was that guy who said if you just paired those two big ass running backs.
Other side of that game, though, I think you finally convinced me never to use Derek Carr, but he has 5,900 against a Titans team that's on 6 days rest that just got lit up by any team that can pass the ball against him.
Gary,
but it's really
one chance. You have one chance for Derek Carr. One chance. It's if he plays an offense that's going to go up on him, because then they have to. The worst thing you can ever do is play a team against Carr or play Carr against a team where if he does his checkdowns, then they do Henry runs, punt, and then he does his check. You do not want any part of him in this game, in my opinion. It's
an Adams week, though. It's definitely an Adams week.
Okay. I'm okay with
Wouldn't you agree? It's because Diggs just went completely ballistic against the Titans. Renfro, I don't know if he's playing, right? He's got a concussion. And then, Waller, I think Waller's in play also. But, I think Devontae Adams is going back to that 17 target week 1 type of volume. So
what are you thinking about Miles Sanders, who has had about 20 touches roughly each of the previous 2 games? Yards per carry is always high. He's 5,500 at Washington, where they're 6.5-point favorites.
He's my favorite cheap running back of the week, I think. 5,500. He looks really good. And even when they were icing that game last week, he was the guy that they kept in the game to run out the clock. Like, that's good stuff. That's not bad. They trusted him. They've trusted him more in the red zone. Yeah, it is a split there with Scott and Gainwell, but
not
30
so
touches,
much, man.
30 touches throughout the first 2 weeks feels pretty good on Sanders. So I like him. I do like him.
Yeah, that could definitely be one. There's a random sniff brought to you by Flonase. You saw Raheem Mostert. He got a few touches week 1, but remember, he just got activated like right before the end of the preseason. Then last week, he had the majority of the touches, and he looked explosive, like the old Mostert, who was the fastest running back in the history of the NFL, I believe, by average speed or fastest, sprint ever run. You know how they clock it with the speedometer or whatever. It used to be Breida. It's all my guys on there. But with that offense, the way they're doing things now, I'll have to ask Gary how Buffalo's run defense has looked. I mean, they obviously shut down Henry the other night, but if they're going to commit to Mostert, he's one of those guys who can take one run and pop it. And they gave him the majority of the snaps last week. They gave him a couple catches. It could be a real weird one in what's supposed to be a game with a lot of points, Dolphins, Bills, and they're at home. Just something to keep on the corner of your radar, fringe radar.
Well, let's talk about that game. Bills front seven is very good. And this game has a high over-under. We just saw what Miami did. I mean, I never thought Tua had that in him, the 6 touchdown performance.
I can't believe it.
I'm guessing Waddle and Tyreek get steamed up a little bit coming off that. I'm not using Tua this week, not against a good Bills defense, but I could see this being a game that does shoot out like possibly expected. It looks like Diggs is going to be the highest owned receiver on the slate. Waddle and Hill will be somewhat popular. So I think the Mostert call is basically leverage off the game, right? It was like Josh Jacobs last week. I don't love Josh Jacobs ever, but everyone and their mother was playing the Raiders-Cardinals game. Josh Jacobs was the guy that maybe, hey, you turn to a little bit to get a little bit different in that game. I think Mostert would be the equivalent of that here. I don't mind that at all. We saw him kind of take over for Chase Edmonds as the between the tackles back. The thing is with Chase Edmonds is he's going to still be the receiving back. So if this game does go out, like that, it's something to consider. But yeah, this game's going to be a hard one for me to fully fade. I mean, we see Miami's not only okay getting in these shootout environments, it almost seems it's what Mike McDaniel wants. He thinks he can out-scheme, outpace, and it's fascinating. I mean, he's a really interesting coach, and He's
Remember,
looked
they
good
didn't
far,
jump up on them, though. Like, they kind of were getting their ass kicked.
No, yeah, he didn't mind playing that way, right? And if the team's going to hand it to him again, it's the best team in football right now. So, like, them playing from behind is a good thing for this game environment, right?
Yeah,
So
I don't think you want to rely on people letting wide receivers streak right by them multiple times in a game. I believe as the season goes on, the likelihood of that is going to extremely I think. What did Stannis Baratheon say? You have one time to like surprise someone. You can play your trick once, and after that wildfire is used once, there is no second wildfire. So yeah. I think those safeties might be playing a little deep this game, or there will be a plan to account for what they're doing with those receivers. And look, what?
Are you enjoying House of Dragon?
I refuse to watch, and it's a damn shame because you're a classic coward. Where I know if someone rapes you in jail, you'll actually still be friends with them afterward because you'll forgive anything. That's what they did to us, Gary. We waited years. And what did we get? A scene with a cup of Starbucks coffee, and then the small council meeting where there's a water bottle behind Samuel Tarley's foot, and somehow the Iron Islands and Dorne, who actually have full control of everything, go, no, all right, yeah, we'll just go with whatever you say. And despite you letting the North be on their own, us, who's actually in charge of things right now, we'll just be okay with this and return to being little minion. It was a disgrace, and I will not reward them with my viewership because it's a prequel, which means eventually it gets to Game of Thrones, which means it eventually gets to the water bottle scene. And I can't do it knowing that's the ending.
I wasn't expecting that rant, but you know what? You're a man of your conviction, and I respect you for it. I remember you and we loved Game of Thrones. We would talk about it all the time. We had our fantasy Game of Thrones league. I won that one year with off the backs of I think the dragon that became an undead dragon.
I will forever hate the leader of the Dothraki for registering 0 kills. Kono, you piece of shit! I don't care. And trust me. I was pursuing performing. I know the actor has nothing to do with anything. I hate the fucking actor too.
Yeah,
because I just unfortunately associate him. And then this motherfucker, he comes back from the dead. And I didn't even get points for that.
No,
because it doesn't count as his magic. Oh, by the way, I drafted.
You wrote into the fantasy scoring system. I know you sent in some complaints.
I said with gifts, I got 2 score changes out of them. I drafted the Night King in the first round, ladies and gentlemen, and you got points if you used magic. This guy gives the Undertaker getup. People come alive from the dead, and they ruled, oh, that's not magic. Oh, yeah, that's what we do, left and right. We go out on the street, we raise our hands, and people become undead. Now, that's fucking magic. That's magic. All right?
Anyway, season 7 was a disgrace. The last season of Game of Thrones was an absolute disgrace, but House of the Dragon is pretty good. It's pretty good so far.
I've heard it, but there just has to be penalties for crimes. I know we're in 2022, and you can get away with anything out there, but one set of eyeballs ain't going to make a difference, but at least I can go to sleep at night knowing there's one less crime on my hands because Lord knows I got to sleep with a few behind these eyes. But that's not going to be an extra one I'm going to add.
We used to sit around our office and pull up a map of Westeros and the Free Cities and talk about the length at which it would take people to get from one area of this to the other.
I know what you're referencing, and this is when we saw the downfall coming. This is like seeing a running back. This was like seeing Zeke Elliott last year. Season 6 of Game of Thrones, we were wondering how the hell are the Knights of the Vale going to get through Moat Cailin without being seen to save their ass in the Battle of Winterfell. And we were looking at the whole map, and then we really were we were debating. They said, well, that's terrain. You actually can't. So they're going to have to storm it and then stop Raven. We're coming through with all these plans. And then they just go, oh, yeah, they just went by there.
Yeah.
No explanation. Previous seasons had to have in-depth explanations. If you look at Gary's projections, they make them in the basement of Area 51. They are legitimate. But all of a sudden, it was all out the window. It would be like going from establish the runs projections to I got a little sniff over here projections. That's what they did. That's what Game of Thrones did. And I didn't forgive them, and you shouldn't either. But that's up to you.
That was what was so hard to think about, is because season 1 was like, we'll get 25 feet with Arya and the Hound in season 2, with and then they just took their time so well, and the character development was so great, and then it just became shit.
You'll hang for this bastard.
So to wrap up that Buffalo Miami game, Josh Allen will be pretty chalky, but I probably will be in line with the field at least. I think the ceiling there is too high. Miami's defense has been really, really bad. And the Bills are the best team in the league. I think it's pretty clear.
And by the way, this is another, just from a gambling perspective, seeing the Eagles crush someone on a Monday night and then betting them the following weekend is the dumbest thing you can ever do. The right side of this game is taking the points with Washington. Now, this isn't supposed to be a gambling podcast, but I figure, maybe it'll help you kids. At least if you're not going to take Washington, don't click on the other side. Plant the flag like Minesweeper. Just stay away. All right.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's good advice. But I like Sanders. I like Gibson. Curtis Samuel's still too cheap, but he'll be chalky. Other games that we probably need to talk about. Detroit, Minnesota, man. That game is looking fun as hell because Minnesota on the same thing, coming off that embarrassing loss in Philly where they couldn't get anything going. They're going back home against maybe the most fun defense to play in fantasy in Detroit. Plus, we know Detroit's offense is actually good where they could push Minnesota on the other side. I think this is probably my game that I'm going to attack most this week. I see the least paths to overall fantasy failure in this game. I think someone from this game is getting there. What's Cook, Swift, Jefferson, Cousins, Thielen. I think everyone's in play here.
Can you give me a quick left eye on the percentage of Dalvin Cook? Because he's one of my favorite plays this week in that he didn't look that great on Monday, but then they came out and said, this guy's got to get more involved. Now, I believe the opposite of what I just said about the last game. You show me Kirk Cousins and the Vikings embarrassed in prime time, and then you send them home to play a team that, in my opinion, we've overvalued in our head because they had these two offensive performances at home in the comforts of Detroit. They're going to the road for the first time, and I believe they catch a beating. I don't know if we're going to see a continuation of the Detroit points. I know their offensive line is doing incredible things, and obviously all those weapons. I wouldn't be surprised if Gary is right and there's points to go around, but also don't be surprised if Minnesota comes out and throws them a beating, okay? Because Aaron Rodgers had a tough time over there. Yeah, then they got rolled on the road. The same way you saw Philadelphia's defense look like garbage the previous week, then they came home and looked like world beaters. A lot can change from week to week depending on what building you're in. So all I'll say is be weary of doing like these Detroit stacks because I think that side of it might, I wouldn't play Thielen. I just wouldn't. It just
very
once
fair.
again,
No,
I think it comes from the gambling. I think it all comes from the gambling knowledge.
I think that's a fair point. My counter would be, we've seen all these absurd comebacks, 3-4 scores down. And I think O'Connell's not going to be afraid to stop throwing because we know the Lions can come back quickly. They are, they have a lot of weapons. They have a great, as you mentioned, great offensive line. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, is turning into an elite fantasy player, not just good, elite. He's up to 7,200 this week. Hopefully that'll keep his ownership a little bit down because I'll certainly like clicking his name. Cook's going to be popular. Cook was the guy that popped out to me this week too. Just in every way. 70, he's under 8K now. It's a really good matchup. It all adds up to a good situation. He's going to be about 15% owned. I'm looking at both Osmo and Established the Run right now. Looks like we are both at 15%. That's high. That's high for a running back. But I have no problem being around the field at that. Jefferson right now only coming through with a little bit under that. So I mean he's expensive to get to, but him coming off a bad game in an excellent matchup. I mean, my God, Cousins stuff. I don't love Cousins a lot. I do think you have to double Cousins. So, I think like a Cousins Cook Jefferson is something no one's going to do, and it's way too expensive, and you get very different right off the bat with that.
You don't think Cousins will do well? Because I mean, Detroit's getting carved up. Oh, okay.
I'm saying I love Cousins, but I'm saying I think you have to double Cousins. You have to go with doubles here. Yeah, you don't have to, but there's a lot of high-end plays on this slate. So I think it would be hard for Cousins to get there without bringing along two of his pass catchers, I should say. I don't know if you just automatically go to the Thielen Jefferson double, though. I would look at Irv Smith. I would look at Dalvin Cook and pairing him with Cousins. So.
You texted me last night about those early wide receivers looking pretty good. And then you're like, well, not any of those running backs in the first round. But then I should have said, what about Swift? He looks pretty nasty out there, man.
Yeah, Swift, Saquon. The end of the first round, the turn guys look pretty good.
But I just brought that up for this game. He could be someone.
And let's hope he's not limited. He only played half the snaps last week because he was limited a little bit.
I know, but the fact that he got through that looking good, you would imagine a week of practice. I don't think he's going to be.
I think Swift's a great play. We saw the Eagles have no problem running on the Vikings here. I like all pieces of this game. I like Swift. I like Amon-Ra. I think I'll take some shots on Shark, and I like all the Viking side of it. So I like this game a lot. I like Cousins. I will say this with Cousins though, if I'm using him, which I think I will. I lock him with Jefferson in every single lineup. There's almost a zero, not zero. less than 5% chance that Cousins is your perfect quarterback without Justin Jefferson there. You could obviously not say the other way around. These elite receivers, the Kupps, the Jeffersons, with pocket passing quarterbacks will bring their quarterbacks with them, not the other way around. So Jefferson should almost be in every single Cousins lineup.
That makes total sense. And it's true. If Cousins is going to do very well, there's almost no shot that happens without Jefferson. The Cincinnati Jets game, I guess I'll quickly say, is this a game where Cincinnati breaks out, or do you use a guy like Mixon where you don't have to invest in doing like a Burrow stack or something like that if there continues struggle? But man, that Jets defense has given up a lot of passing yardage to quarterbacks. Well, first one was Lamar, but then even Jacoby Brissett last week. Look, not much because they like to run the ball. But how do you feel about that one?
This seems like, has there ever seen like more of a week 3 get right spot than the Jets coming off a win and the Bengals are 0-2 coming off an embarrassing loss? Like, this is, I get it's in MetLife, but man, this seems like the biggest, most obvious Bengals spot of all time, which scares me almost. It almost scares me how obvious this seems of a Bengals spot. But I like all the pieces, in this game on the Bengals side.
No,
I think Burrow's in play. T and Chase are in play. Mixon are in play. I'd want plenty of exposure to all of them.
Any of the Chargers look good to you? We don't know Keenan Allen's status, and then we got the injury.
Yeah, it's a wait and see with Allen and Herbert.
Are you ready for a nice lazy approach? I don't like it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go on to it.
Last game we got hit on Rams Cardinals, right? That's the 4 o'clock. It's again in division. We've seen the Cardinals be like an absolute joke of a team. I can't believe they won that game.
Gary, I tried telling you last week. They look, and don't let the comeback fool you. They looked just as bad in that game as they did the previous week, as they did versus the Rams. They're toast.
It was a lot about the Raiders letting them get back in that, and Kyler just doing ridiculous things with his legs, which to me puts Kyler in play here at home in division. I think they suck, but if they're playing from behind with the Rams here, it's the same thing. It's almost similar to the Lions, almost similar to the Dolphins. Like, I want these teams playing from behind because your ceiling in the second half gets up real large, which is what we saw with Kyler last week. So,
I believe it's going to be hard for me to just predict those Cardinals because he doesn't seem to have a good rapport with Marquise Brown. He took some obligatory shots at the end of the game, but when you look at both games when they were close, he was getting no looks. I don't feel comfortable with these Cardinals until Hopkins comes back because I think he frees up everything. The one thing we did see was the continued connection with Ertz. He really likes Ertz. I think when you bring Hopkins back into that's going to free up looks for Hollywood Brown, and Murray will have the guy that he's always comfortable going to on the regular. And I think maybe that will kick things back into motion. But I am not liking what I'm seeing over there.
Yeah, Ertz is like a high floor, low ceiling, but really high volume play here. His target share has been absurd since he's been in Arizona. The other thing we have to think with the Cardinals is James Conner left that game. We have like no information on this injury. It's an ankle injury. Been very quiet. He did come back to Thursday's practice, but I don't know if he played. I know he was present. So it sounds like he's day to day. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, you'll have some value out of Eno or Darrell Williams, but I don't know if I like it against the Rams, who have been impossible to run on for years. So,
are you taking a flyer on any of the cheaper Bucs receivers since all the wide receivers aren't going to be playing?
Yeah, for sure. I think Perriman's the guy I like the most, especially for tournaments, because we've seen him be a guy that's gotten there before. And we know he's a deep threat. He scored a touchdown this past weekend. He's 3,900. And he's a guy that has managed to stick around on these teams with deep putt throw. My problem with Tampa Bay is you're placing a good Green Bay defense. It's not the same Bucs team that we've seen the last couple of years. They are not pass heavy right now. That without Mike Evans, they're giving Fournette 25 carries a game. Yeah. So I'm just a little worried about the amount that they're going to throw. But between Gage at 4,700, Perriman at 3,900, I mean, Scotty Miller had 8 targets last week. If you want to talk yourself into that, you can. One of these guys might be viable for sure.
Yeah, because Brady's getting frustrated. The offensive line isn't holding up. And then when you don't have an assortment of receivers that you're comfortable with, he might have a game like Aaron Rodgers had week 1 where he's just looking around like somebody, my goodness. There's a chance of that. I kind of like the Packers to win that game, by the way, because it looks like Rodgers he's starting to understand what he needs to do with this personnel. And at least he's had a couple weeks to prepare. Brady, this is going to be, he might not have Godwin, Julio, Evans, Gronk, Antonio Brown, everybody. And, we've seen what he looks like sometimes behind a shoddy offensive line in New England without any good receivers to throw to.
Absolutely. Leonard Fournette's going to be the chalk of the week, by the way. Take that for what you will. He's 6,500. The volume's insane. People are playing him.
We've given you 57 running backs already to use who will get you away from the high percentages. So, if you fall for Lenny, then, you deserve it.
Another chalk play at running back, just to mention, I don't really want to talk much about this game, but David Montgomery is under 6K. He's going to be very popular against Houston. I like Khalil Herbert in tournaments just to pivot off that a little bit.
Wow, so. Big balls. So I guess my pivot would have been, like I told you before, Mostert, but those 49ers running backs and me, we die a slow death together. So why don't we is there anyone we mentioned that's worthy of a tight-fitting suit from the Men's Warehouse, which we're clearly not sponsored by, nor do they even use this saying anymore. But for me, my Men's Warehouse pick of the week is going to be someone that I mentioned at the top. I'm going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster for some of those aforementioned reasons. The targets were there week 1, brutal matchup week 2, the same team that picked off Carr 3 times the week before that. I don't think Schuster has that next level ability to beat, very tough coverage. You throw him against the Colts indoors. Mahomes, I believe, trusts him the most out of those receivers. So I like Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm going to say he's going to get over 65 yards with potential touchdown. Maybe, when you got Mahomes, you always have the chance for a mega day. So I think when you're getting someone priced like he is, hopefully lower owned because people were scared of what they saw the previous week, they had extra days to prepare. I think he's a great player. He's my Men's Warehouse pick of the week. Anyone who tickles your fancy for that award?
I think it's actually a really fun tournament week as I start to dive into the slate a little bit more. There's a lot of chalk up top right now. And then there's a lot of guys that have incredibly high ceilings that aren't getting that much look. And usually I wouldn't flag plant like an 8-8 Christian McCaffrey or an 8-4 Devontae Adams, but that's where I'm looking right now because these guys people get so reactionary. You talk about this all the time, but the donkeys get so reactionary to the previous week. Devontae Adams only had 8 points last week. He's playing Tennessee. Stephon Diggs just went nuclear in this exact same spot, and he's coming through right now with early ownership of 7%. This is a guy that can break a slate on any given week. I'm going to go Devontae Adams. I know I flag planted Darren Waller last week, and maybe I'm just, I like the Raiders skill position guys this year, but anytime, these guys falling through the cracks just doesn't make sense to me. There's few guys on these kind of slates that have ceilings like this. I don't mind.
And by the way, he qualifies. If you're saying, oh my God, this guy's giving Devontae Adams no. It qualifies if nobody's taking them. Right. Because that's saying you don't like him. So we're saying, no. Put on the suit and get him in your lineup. Get out there and be a groomsman for Devontae Adams. Now, You know how I feel about him long-term during the season. But my God, if you're watching the tape of what happened to Tennessee, I mean, if there's anyone who just can't stop himself from not doing it, though, it's Carr. We'll see. We'll see how those 0-2 Raiders fare on the road against another 0-2 team. So, Gary, we stumbled into something that I said, this is actually pretty good. Why don't we do this again this week? Let me try to build the lineup, and you can be that guy. You were like the game of operation last week where I tried to put the lineup. You went, you need a run back for this particular game. So why don't we try to make a lineup, but you need to be season 1 through 4 of Game of Thrones. You can't just let me off the hook. You can't let me go north of the wall and survive. Season 1 through 4, I'd be dead. Season 5, who do they let die? Thoros, the guy no one cared about. You got to let a big guy die in my lineup if he deserves to be dead.
Okay.
I mean, guys, I'm dialing today. That dialing.
Works. Let's avoid the red wedding though. Let's try to keep it like a classic season 4 death after the red wedding. Something good, but not too disastrous. Here, throw my screen up on the screen here.
Here we go.
All right. So you tell me where you want to start at quarterback because I like a lot of guys this week.
All right. So first thing I'm going to do is maximize my screen. Now I can see it. So at quarterback, there are many games. I mean, this is very.
It's a spend up at quarterback week. It's 1,000,000% a spend up at quarterback week. I highly doubt.
Well, there's so many expensive quarterbacks now that I'm looking at this.
That's why one of these, you could talk yourself into Mariota against the Seahawks, but there's no need to do that. You know what I mean? There's no need to do it. There's 1,000,000 spend up options.
So now I see why you're tempted to take Carr.
No, I'm not taking Carr.
No, but I'm just saying, there are
It's one of the reasons I'm not. No, because one of these expensive guys, like from Burrow upwards, I want to play almost, maybe not Herbert, I don't know his health situation, but I want to play, I think, every single one of these guys. So like, why would I go to any of these bottom feeders that don't have the same ceiling as these top tier guys, you know? So.
Yeah, and I'm going to imagine maybe I can do this in a reverse fashion. So let's get my men's warehouse in there. Let's get Juju Smith-Schuster in there. Let's go to tight end. I know you said it was alluring to get the oh no, that was if I played Taylor. But since I prefer Schuster, there has to be a week where this guy plays well. I really am tempted to go Waller there because I believe once he starts getting the looks, and you saw it, almost had 2 touchdowns last game, but that's just too good of a price in what should be a game with points for Hockenson. I saw him get a lot of looks. They were not on the same page last week. All these weapons that they have over there in Detroit make me want to take Hockenson. Are you all right with that?
Yeah, I'm good with Hockenson. I want pieces of this game. I'm curious what you think on Kyle Pitts, who's now all the way under 5K, which is crazy. They're like begging you to take him.
I'm not. I'm sorry, but he still for me is in. Gary, this goes back to last year. It goes back to Javonte Williams. It goes back to all the. I haven't seen the shit that you guys are all talking about. So if you want to keep talking about it, and I've always said this, that whole too big for a cornerback, too fast for a linebacker, that's the biggest scam line there ever was, because every good tight end gets shut down by a pretty good corner, and that's it. Maybe there's 1 or 2 balls where he can perfectly position his body in the red zone, but that's a scam. I don't like this for a variety of reasons. Maybe he has a good game because of the matchup, theoretically, but until I see Pitts do it consistently. Was he really doing it consistently towards the end of last year? Not enough to the point where they were meriting taking somebody like him over Waller, which I thought was the craziest thing ever. And, but go ahead, everyone. Keep taking your young guy articles. Keep trusting all them. I'm not going to I don't know how I just went into this. But yeah, TJ Hockenson, I'm not playing Pitts until I see him look like I've seen these better tight ends look for consistent stretches. And what I saw from Hockenson early in the year last year, we've seen it with Goff. We've seen Goff trust him. And now with maybe extra attention focused on St. Brown, this could be a good game to get the ball out of Goff's hands into Hawkinson's. What is this? Is it? All right, he's participating in practice. So, yeah, TJ Hockenson. What I'm trying to do is free up room for that quarterback now, because apparently we're going to need it. Now I always like tossing in a defense to give me go. I can try to sniff out cheap defenses that are going to do relatively well. Easily Patriots in their home opener. I don't care if it's Lamar.
Okay. I have no problem with that.
All right. So
you want to pick a running back?
I gotta trust myself. I mean, you have to take the most expensive running back on the whole thing. Yeah.
You want JT?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great tournament play, and you get correlation there, so no issues.
Yeah. Now the issue is okay. So
I would go to your boy.
I almost want you to take it from here.
I would go to your boy Miles Sanders.
Yeah. So that was my next thought, to save some money. So now, what can you do looking at this lineup?
I'd probably want to go Mahomes.
That's what was in my head.
I mean, if you're playing Juju and Taylor, obviously it's not.
Now, when you won your millionaire, you said, well, you use DeMarcus Robinson because it's like, Mahomes could go wild every game. Do you want to do something similar like that for this? One of those? Yeah,
you could double for sure. You got the
what are you thinking? Like, so now looking at this lineup.
I don't love MVS, but he's got 7 targets. He's running the deep routes. If you think this game is staying close on the back of Jonathan Taylor, which is what you're banking on right now, that means a 200 total yards, 2 touchdowns from Taylor. It's a weird way to push, but it's different, right? Like you think game script would phase Taylor out in this sense, but hey, maybe they realize Taylor's their only shot at winning.
Well, this is a perfect time then for you to actually. You're always good, but you gave Dortch. Do you have any money savers this week?
If Gabe Davis doesn't play, those Bills guys, I mean, Jake Kumaro is minimum, and he ran every outside route the other day against Diggs, but we don't know what Gabe Davis' status is. Yeah, I mean, other cheap receivers, it's the Bucs guys. Like, I like Perriman a lot, you know. There's not as much out on this slate, though, as there was last week, for sure. So, you know
what I'll say, just to end, people are all over David Montgomery because of what they saw last week. There is probably, if there's a time you can sneak some points out of those Chicago, I know it feels miserable, but home against Houston, to use some of those players who are beyond abysmal. I know it takes ironclad balls, but my guess is they're not expensive at all. This is the cheapest you'll see them. And you're never going to get a matchup like this at home. I mean, that's not even cheap enough for me. But regardless, I would play him.
I think it's sharp. So the Bears haven't thrown at all. They're terrified to let Justin Fields go, but I think that they're going to respond to this narrative. Darnell Mooney has one catch on the season. In tournaments, I'm going to be playing, so I don't mind the play, even though the Bears are terrible.
Put him in there, and you know what, ladies and gentlemen, the rest is for you to decide. That's. But
this is very unique. This is unique. It's definitely unique, which is good.
Hey man, if I compare fantasy to Mo Kalen, you're going to get a unique lineup. That's what you get around here.
Busted.
All right, as I like to say at the end of my videos, good luck to you. Better luck to me.
Busted.
But we do appreciate you coming back for another week of chalking. We'll be back next week. Feel free to drop us questions. You could tag either of us, and normally one of us will get back to you. So if there's something you want us to hit on the next episode, just let us know. Thank you for coming back. Send this episode to a friend, 2 friends, 3 friends, a Game of Thrones friend, someone who refuses to watch this new show, King of the Dragon, Return of the Dragon, Double Dragon. That's how you know I'm telling the truth, because I don't even remember the name. So remember ours. Look Who's Chalking on all digital platforms. Give us a click here, click there, a subscription here, a subscription there. All right, everyone, take it easy. Have a good one, and we'll be back with you next week.
Good luck.
It's nothing about the past, nothing about the future. We're getting ready for Cincinnati.